Hello everybody and welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
Unfortunately, and my name's still James.
I thought you were saying that it was unfortunate that my name was Suj. There's nothing wrong with that. I've had to deal with this name for 40 odd years now.
How did you know that's why I was really referencing?
Yeah. James, on Saturday...
Just get on with it.
I took the kids out in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Where did I take them?
The park.
I took them to the RAF Museum in Hendon. You been there before?
No.
Very relevant. Why? Red Arrows. That's the title of this show. We are falling. Falling.
I don't think you're falling as badly as me, mate. I mean,
do you know the first thing I look at when I realise that obviously you've had a bad week? I just keep looking and seeing how far behind you is man-child. Is he really catching you?
I don't think I have ever seen game week rank before start with a 7.
Wow.
Yeah, game week rank 7,087,000. I don't think there's even 7 million players, is there? Oh my God.
Not real life human being players for
sure.
So
let's spit it out. 32 points for me this week. Let's go through just very briefly the heroes of the hour.
Did you make any transfers firstly? Yes. Okay.
Although I don't care that the transfer went wrong because I'm happy about it really. The heroes of the hour. Matt Ryan. No show. I mean, wasn't expecting anything this week anyway. Trent and Robbo, my heroes. I picked Luke Ayling over Cole Walker-Peters and Charlie Taylor. This looked like a good decision come the end of Sunday. It looked like a bad decision this morning as his 0-pointer did not beat their 1 points. Mateus Pereira managed to last under an hour for West Brom against the weakest defensive side in the league. Didn't 8 completed passes, I think it was.
On Liverpool,
bloody hell.
The weakest defensive side in the league.
That's true. Sorry, apologies to Fulham fans. Liverpool, who might have a double defence from, yes, are the weakest side in the league. Not really, but I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
Phil Foden, 1-pointer. I can live with that, by the way.
What, Foden?
Yeah, he
yeah.
Played, left out. He's 6.5 million for one of the best attacking teams in the league. Blank for Heung-min Son, who I can't even remember having a shot on goal actually. Soucek came in for the player that I transferred in this week, which was Christian Pulisic. I decided to buy over Marcus Rashford. Now, this didn't actually hurt me on the points here because Rashford, Soucek, 2 points, didn't make any difference. The hurt is obviously Christian Pulisic is now sitting in the team. And of course, I sold Gareth Bale. Now, Gareth, I don't regret selling Gareth, by the way. Because it's right in principle. I've got a 9.5 million midfielder who I know is not going to start. And as we've already called it Tottenham for our patrons today. As we just discussed, I think if Solly Marchand got injured, he wouldn't have even come on. Then he scores, not only that, he gets top bonus as well. I mean, you can debate that on the FPL bonus point system later. Raul Jimenez, 2-pointer. The end of his run of decent fixtures is now. But he's probably going to have to stay in my team. Captain goal for Harry Kane wasn't just a complete disaster. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin got an injury time goal at Newcastle from absolutely nowhere. I mean, realistically, this could have been a lot worse than the final ending of 32 points.
There was a time where had Calvert-Lewin not returned, I mean, you'd have probably had a game week rank of last. Hideous, man.
God.
Hideous.
I mean, yeah, Kane penalty and Calvert-Lewin goal in injury time is my week, littered with 1s and 0s. I mean, it's not even just 2s, littered with 1s and 0s. What a state. Good job you didn't score again. Trent and Robbo would have got 1s as well.
Ouch.
It's all right, though. I'm still going to win FPL.
Yeah, tune in tomorrow for Sky Fantasy Football, which is the game we all really care about. We don't even care about this. It's very interesting that if I pick James up in the morning, the first thing I will go to and talk about is Sky, not FPL these days.
99 points in Sky this week. It's unbelievable.
Mental, isn't it? I ended the week on 47 points. I didn't make any transfers. I rolled. I was umming and ahhing about whether or not selling Antonio was the right thing to do with his injury. We just don't know enough. So I decided that if it was a worst case scenario of losing 0.1 this week, I'll stomach it. And I just benched him. Ended the week on, 47, wasn't too bad. Ramsdale 4 points was decent considering he picked up 2 save points and then only conceded 1 goal. I was very, very happy with that. He was so close to being on the chopping block. Had I not already owned 3 Chelsea players, I would have bought Mendy. But when I went to make the transfer and said, you already own 3 Chelsea players, I was like, yes, I do. Just leave it then and let it ride for another week. The 2 pointers from the Liverpool guys we spoke about, Reece James and Stuart Dallas both returned, one with a goal, one with a clean sheet. So I was quite happy with that. Reece James now 2 returns on the trot, James. And we're talking about stomaching the rough with the smooth. If he then gets dropped next week, so be it.
Yeah, I get that.
He's making that shirt his own.
You just got to make sure you got a bench to cover it.
Yeah, which I have.
Have you? What's your first sub?
Well, it was Souček this week.
Yeah.
Souček and Dallas, and then Mitchell and Antonio there as well. But I'm going to be making some moves at the moment. Ross Barkley, since I've owned him, has delivered me sweet fuck all. So, having said that, he's still playing number 10 with Ollie Watkins and Jack Grealish. They scored 3 goals in the second half of that game. They've got goals in them, Villa.
You sure, rather than calling this podcast Red Arrows, shouldn't we call it the Curse of Planet FPL?
Yeah, true. Players that we've bought that haven't delivered. Heung-min Son did nothing for me. Havertz did nothing for me. Zaha did nothing for me. I didn't care about the Zaha 1-pointer because I had Captain Patricio in Sky, so I was like, so what? I'll take it. Werner returned, started the day on the bench and came on and scored.
Okay, the luck of Planet FPL.
And Captain Kane. So really it was the 2 defensive guys in Reece James and Stuart Dallas that were the difference this week for you and me.
So actually, you've ended up with Werner goal wasn't meant to start. Dallas cross. Let's be honest. What was your final total for the week?
47.
That was still shit as well, wasn't it?
Game week rank of 4.9 million. Overall rank drop from 2.4 to 2.9 million.
Oh, well, at least you still start with a 2. Some of us don't even start with a 3 anymore.
Yeah, it's incredibly tough. But I go into this week now with 2 free transfers, and I may even make more.
Is it? I go into this week thinking, how am I not going to take a minus fucking 16?
Yeah. James, you need to maybe think about the wildcard here.
I do and I don't. So the thing is, right, I wanted to move on Jimenez this week, was kind of part of the plan, go cheaper up front, and then I could sort of integrate a new Manchester City player in, Pereira up to De Bruyne, something like that. But actually, if I look at the team this week, I've obviously got a goalkeeper issue because I've got Ryan and Walton. But if Potter comes out and says, like, Ryan's going to play, then I've got him at home to Burnley. It's not the week I want to sell him. Trent and Robbo's obviously ridiculous this week away to Man City, but anybody who knows me knows my philosophy. Don't leave out premium defenders. My 3 other defenders this week, I've got Walker Peters at home to Newcastle, Luke Ayling away to Palace, Charlie Taylor away to Brighton. So, I mean, Walker Peters versus Ayling potentially is going to be a really difficult decision anyway. At the moment, I'd probably lean Walker Peters. It's the right week for Souček to come into the team. That was always part of the plan. Get here, and then Souček plays regularly. Phil Foden, all right, it's fine. Heung-min Son away to West Brom. Harry Kane captain away to West Brom. Calvert-Lewin and Jimenez.
On paper, perfectly fine.
But that's the point. The worst thing I can do here is start going, erratic. So my plan was always, right, I've got to remove Raul Jimenez when I get to this point at the end of the fixtures. But actually, Raul Jimenez, any game, right, we know he's never going to get more than 1, but he can score at Leicester away. He can score against Southampton the following week. They're no great shakes defensively, are they? So Raul Jimenez got to stay for me now. And if I accept that, then I'm not going as mad with hits. I've got in the bank currently 1.8 million, which would allow me, for example, to go Pereira to Grealish, and it's not the right week, in my opinion, to get Grealish when they're about to play Arsenal, but I probably do want a bit of it on the other side. Get him in now while he's still 7.3, rather than buying him in 2 weeks at possibly 7.5 if he returns again this week. And I can move Ryan to 5.0 keeper. As we discussed on our Patreon pod yesterday, I'm probably leaning towards Fabianski, actually.
Is he not 5.5?
Fabianski's 5.
Okay, I did have a look at Flappy. I thought he was 5.5. I'm also thinking that Soufal may come into my squad instead of Mitchell as a 4th defender.
Now, of course, doing that as a -4 means I'm still leaving Christian Pulisic there.
But what if I get to game week 9 and Christian Pulisic's back fit and he's got Newcastle away? Wouldn't I rather have that still sitting there than Mateus Pereira sitting there? And suddenly then it's not that bad again. Then I could probably roll.
Yeah.
And then after Man City play Tottenham, I'm walking to that Burnley fixture game week 10. Then I can take a -4 to change about 3 players or so, do a little mini wild card. That's more what I'm thinking at the moment. The big thing for me about not wild carding is I still don't know if I wild carded. I still don't know if I'd be happy with what I'm doing. I know I'd probably go treble City in midfield, but I'd still want Kane's son this week and not want them afterwards potentially. So it's not.
It's not the right week to wildcard for you for sure. Yeah, I'm similar to you in that I'm going into this week with I don't need to make a transfer this week other than one place. So Ramsdale in goal is the one place where I'm not happy with him in between the sticks, so I need to move him on. But Trent and Robbo, like you mentioned, no need to move on. And Reece James, home to Sheffield United, I'm playing him. Souček, home to Fulham, playing him. Barkley, away at Arsenal, I'm not going to drop him. There's every chance they'll score. Son, Havertz, Zaha. I mean, Leeds gave away chances again yesterday and Leicester put some away. So Zaha plays for me. He's had another price rise now to 7.4 and it keeps rising. Werner at home to Sheffield United, Kane away at West Brom. And then Dallas is first on my bench and that's fine for me. So I might even just use my one free transfer to fix Ramsdale. Now, if I sell Antonio, then I have to drop someone from my starting lineup, which would probably be Souček. He's due, isn't he? Surely. Come on, Souček. We can't keep saying
probably,
this.
Yeah. I think, to be honest, when Souček scores for West Ham, even I'll shout goal. Yeah, to be honest,
it's not panic stations is the point, isn't it? That's what it comes down to.
And there's a lot of people having week scores of 50 this week. Probably have had a bad week. Welcome to my 32, for example. But actually, it's not that bad in the circumstances this week when you consider the budget defensive games that I've got. Souček to come into the team. Like I said, the worst thing I could probably do is just tear it up. And yeah, of course I want to get Kevin De Bruyne in the team, but am I desperate to get him in for Liverpool and Tottenham? No. Do I know that he can go mad in them games? Yes, I do. And he's done that sort of thing before, but I just got to accept it at the moment. I'm going to have to go a bit longer without, for example. I might even genuinely just end up changing the goalkeeper this week.
Same as me. Just move Ramsdale on, and that's it.
I almost feel like I look at the team, I think, do you know what? It's not that bad. A lot of people are going to be screaming, James, you need to come off Trent and Robbo. I get that. I'm not going to tell any of you to keeping Trent. If you want to sell him. I'm not going to. I look at the fixtures, game week 9 to game week 15, and I'm convinced that there will be returns for these Liverpool boys. Convinced about it. And if I'm wrong, I only got myself to blame. Yeah,
of course, straight after this game week is the international break as well. I like rolling into the international break with 2, as many managers do, 2 free transfers. So
put it this way, there are 4 players I want to remove from my team before I'd even consider removing Trent or Robertson. I've got 4 bigger problems.
Yeah. Let's run down the fixtures as we always do. We will be a little bit briefer with the fixtures than we potentially sometimes are because in principle, of course. If we remove the West Ham and Tottenham games, normally that cuts out 50% of our ramblings and rambling ons. There are quite a few questions that you have been so kind to send in on Twitter that we do want to get to, which sometimes we don't. So with the quite quick turnaround in fixtures this week, with obviously the Friday 4 o'clock deadline, is it? Yeah.
4 o'clock deadline. Yeah.
Mental. We want to give you enough time to get in. Again, don't panic. No need to rush into craziness. Wolves 2, Palace 0. Wolves clean sheet. Max Kilman is now no longer the 4.0 darling that we all want to get to because he's now 4.3. James, he's really shot up in value. What does that mean? Saiss is going to be sitting at a left-sided centre-half of a back 3 next game, surely.
But you think Saiss will come back in?
Yeah, it's what happens in football, James. It's what happens.
No, there is zero reason why Matt Kilman won't keep his place in that team. He's done very well. They went through this pretty much untroubled, bar obviously the moment where it looked like Palace were going to be awarded a penalty. There was something really interesting in this game. and it's part why for anybody listening to People's Poll yesterday, I kind of went and watched it again Saturday night. Wolves wing-backs were really good. I was very critical of Semedo in the Leeds game in terms of some of his defensive stuff off the ball and that. But him and Ait-Nouri were, I mean, they basically ran the game from wing-back. They were such a threat. And I wanted to double-check and go back and find out kind of why this happened. Because I sort of felt that Palace had dropped into a 4-5-1 shape with Zaha going back to the left. God knows why. But actually, on second look, it was more like a 4-3-3 from Palace. And actually, Zaha and Townsend stayed quite central and ended up going into wide areas. But basically, Palace played a flat 3 in midfield and then a flatter 3 in front of that. And it just didn't feel very Palace-y, if I can make such a statement. And I think that's why Wolves had so much joy in the wide areas. Didn't help it was PVA's first game. Not that he played particularly badly. Klein is also obviously very short of fitness, having not played football for a very long time on the right-hand side as well. And Ait-Nouri and Semedo did what they look like they'll be good at doing, which is going forward. I thought Semedo particularly was a standout. I know Ait-Nouri got the goal and stuff. So it just felt like tactically, Palace played into Wolves' hands. And the thing is, when we looked at Palace and their strengths, you go 2 banks of 4, generally, or 4 and a 5. But this wasn't. It was like a 4 and a 3. And I don't know if it was to try and expose Wolves on the counter-attack in those areas. Whatever it was, it didn't work, essentially. And it just felt like it was removing Zaha out of the position on the pitch that he'd go and be the most dangerous again.
Yep. If Matt Doherty was still at Wolves in Semedo's position...
How have you managed to get him in this podcast already?
Because he started... Are you a bit bitter about the fact that you bought him and he's basically not what you thought you were getting at Spurs? We'll come on to him in a bit.
I thought Matt Doherty was up to 6 out of 10 on Sunday, mate.
If he was there in that position as right wing back in that Wolves side, he was 6.5 million at the start of the season.
Yeah.
Semedo's in there at 5.5 million. That's why Matt Doherty's in the conversation. So Semedo is what we might consider expensive as a new comer coming into the league at 5.5 million, but he's doing the same job as Doherty did at 6.5 million. So Semedo's an interesting one. I think a lot of people won't go near him because of his price.
I think most won't go near because of the fixtures.
Yeah, that's true.
Leicester, Southampton, Arsenal, Liverpool, Villa, Chelsea, Burnley, Tottenham, Manchester United. Wolves' remaining fixtures in 2020. Brighton, Everton, West Brom, Chelsea, Palace, Arsenal on the other side up to February. Wolves are about to walk into a very difficult period. Now, for those who've got on at Kilman, great. And at his value, to be honest, if you want to keep playing him at that value, I don't have a problem with that. And it's because as well, Wolves are one of the best defensive sides in this league. If they can get that team settled, I think Palace is a nice fixture where anybody can keep a clean sheet. They were very resilient at Leeds, having looked like they were going to struggle for 15 minutes previously. So you can trust them defensively. Would I be going and buying Semedo and stuff? No, you're right.
Not with that fixture run.
No. I mean, look, 1 goal conceded in the last 4 for Wolves, which was the free kick against Newcastle late in the game. But them fixtures coming up don't scream like there's going to be many. So I think Kilman is the value option. I think you could still go to him if you want to because it's still very cheap. That price will keep going, I think. Do you know what his ownership is overall?
I don't know what his ownership is.
It's probably still pretty low.
It's going to be low, yeah.
And you've got to think what Saïs got up to about 20% ownership. It's going to be a lot of people thinking, boom, there's $1 million, save that, bosh that on.
Sideways move.
To be honest, yeah. So you can still absolutely go for Kilman. I wouldn't have any interest in going for any other Wolves assets at the moment. Palace, not on the radar particularly, although it wouldn't be a huge shock if come the weekend I've got Vicente Gaeta in goal. Because I'm potentially going to need a new goalkeeper. And I'm going to be probably restricted up to a max value of 5 million. It's going to rule me out of Mendy already. Palace's fixture run, next 4, Leeds, Burnley, Newcastle, West Brom, is okay.
Yeah, it's why Zaha's going to stick around for a while.
Correct.
For sure.
We said that obviously if you went down this route, he'd end up staying for you. And to be honest, on those fixtures, there's zero reason why you should remove Wilfried Zaha from your squad. Even counter-attacking on Leeds could be really interesting, actually. Want him back centrally a little bit, though. That wasn't encouraging last Friday night. I don't know if it was something tactically designed for Wolves that just didn't work. Perhaps.
Yep. Sheffield United, Man City. I predicted in the predictions that we do on the differential show for the patrons, smashing for Sheffield United 3-0, 4-0.
Smashed, mate.
And you said 1-0, and you were right.
Oh, did I actually go 1-0? Yeah, to be honest, genuinely, I'd be keener to have De Bruyne this coming week for Liverpool than I would have been for playing Sheffield United. Sheffield United don't get battered by anybody. They're all right defensively. There's a couple of interesting assets.
He says, I've owned Ramsdale all season. I haven't had a single flipping clean sheet.
What's the most they've conceded in the game? 2.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And they've just played City and Liverpool.
Yep.
They've played away to Arsenal. We've played Wolves at home. We've had some difficult games. We've got Chelsea away next. Chelsea won't batter Sheffield United at the weekend. Go and lock it in now. Get down the bookies. 2-0 Chelsea probably. It won't be high scoring. Which is interesting actually, because I think quite a few people may look at differential Chelsea captaincy this week. Particularly those who don't have Tottenham players. It could be difficult. There's a couple of just firstly Sheffield United players that are beginning to stand out and not particularly worth considering this week, but may well be for the following week. Ethan Ampadu played again in
holding midfield,
and he's doing all right. He's 4.4 million. He's also very important. He's ineligible this game week because Chelsea obviously being his parent club.
And all that, yeah.
So he can't play this week. That might also possibly have a detrimental impact on them. But I presume they'll just play Norwood there or bring Lundstrom in and drop Burge into that position. So no major shakes for him. But Ampadu at 4.4 million defensively could be really interesting because their fixtures really ease up after the Chelsea game for a sustained period, basically up to around about game weeks 19-20. And it's going to bring Ryan Brewster back into the conversation, I think. Still sitting there at 4.5 million, still sitting there at 6.8% owned, because we're about to get into a period where if he's going to play in the team, it becomes interesting.
Because of their fixtures?
Genuinely, it becomes interesting. He'll get close to my radar. If he's going to continue getting what he's been getting so far, which obviously includes 26 minutes, 53 minutes, and then really importantly this, 90 minutes against Manchester City, leans towards a potential change of philosophy for Chris Wilder, who regularly changes his forwards around the 65-minute mark.
Yeah, that's one of the things we've always said with their strikers is they're the first to get subbed.
Even though they're one of the poorest attacking sides in the league, the fixtures ease up. If you can get me in regularly getting 70, 80 minutes a week at 4.5 million up front, I'm interested.
But as a bench filler?
No, I think there's fixtures coming up where you could play him. Genuinely. I think it's coming to that stage. It's going to become harder and harder. For those who are on, it's going to begin to become hard to leave him out because of the prospects. And it just, obviously having him opens doors. It depends on where you're at with your value. For someone like me who's obviously struggling with squad value because I haven't wildcarded and stuff like that, to go into a Brewster rather than say a Che Adams could be the difference between me having Sterling to go with De Bruyne or not, for example. I need to think and plan ahead and consider those sort of things. So Ryan Brewster's on my radar again now. Ampadu not so much because I don't feel like I need to force the issue defensively. But I think if I walked into an injury there and felt I needed to replace one of them, then he'd be right at the top of the list of players I'd consider, actually.
Yeah, don't doubt that.
So it'd be interesting if now you sell Ramsdale, having gone through this horrible period, or if you just decide to sit it out now.
I think I need to move him on.
You keep saying that.
I think I need to move him on. Laporte came back in, picked up a bonus point. No surprise. There's a nice clean sheet in there for City all of a sudden. 6 million. I think he's an interesting alternative to people that want to downgrade from Trent or Robbo but don't want to go to a cheap alternative and still want a premium. I think Laporte or even Diaz are both actually really decent options there.
Diaz at 5.5 is really interesting. I think I would go that over Laporte, 0.5 saving at the moment. It's interestingly as well, in City's 6 games so far this season, Kyle Walker's only missed 13 minutes.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing we all have to be conscious of, I think we're all aware, this fixture turn is coming for Manchester City from game week 10. You know, Burnley, Fulham and West Brom are all at home are 3 out of 4 fixtures from game week 10. Newcastle at home is the 6th fixture of that. Southampton away the 5th fixture, which I know they lost that fixture 1-0 last year, but Southampton are liable, right, if they have a bad day defensively. So we all want to target City players. What we all have to accept is kind of what I said at the start with Foden. Even Sterling, De Bruyne are going to get rotated probably in these home fixtures, and it's going to be dangerous. You need to decide whether you're happy to do it or not. If you said to me now I could have Raheem Sterling start 2 of them 3 home fixtures, then I'm interested. I'm very interested. What I might have said it to you yesterday on the Patreon pod, I really hope they win their next 2 Champions League games.
Yeah.
So they've got that group
to concentrate on
12
the league.
points to go, yeah, do you know what? We aren't going to muck about with these league games.
Yeah.
Because there's a real opportunity for City. To be honest, it's more important for City not to lose the game against Liverpool on Sunday than win it. Don't lose that game. If it's a draw, it's a draw. Because then they've got the fixtures, I think, to really take advantage.
Yeah.
And really start pushing home and get on a run. And I think they will. So don't lose the game Sunday.
Cheaper than Kyle Walker and Diaz and Laporte is actually Cancelo, and he's got ridiculously low ownership. I think it's less than 2% at the moment. Let's have a quick
1.3%.
It's incredible. 5.4 million.
No interest.
Do you think that he's making that left-sided left-back role his? Because he played really well against us.
Possibly. I think it depends on the fixture. So like Guardiola brought Zinchenko against you.
Yeah.
And he said afterwards he wanted a left-footed player to play there. I feel we spoke to Johnny Pringle, FPL Pringle in pre-season, and we spoke about Cancelo. I hadn't really felt like he'd claimed the position when he had the opportunity. I think he's playing better. I think that certainly is going to help now having Laporte inside him, right? A player that you know you can trust on the inside of you. Possibly.
I think he's getting an interesting link up with Sterling. I think he's been overlapping particularly well. He's creating attacking threat. Cancelo's interesting for me. I'm surprised that you are swerving it, because if they're keeping clean sheets that Laporte and Diaz are the bedrock of, he's getting those points as well from an FPL point of view.
We've got Johnny on during the international break before City play Tottenham. I'm convinced that he would agree with the statement of pay more for Walker than get Cancelo. I'm convinced he would agree with that statement.
Okay. It's quite a bit of difference though, 0.6 million. For those that can't afford it, might be interesting.
Then you go Diaz.
See, Cancelo's played 90 minutes in the last 3.
Yeah. What's Mendy's status? Muscle injury.
Crazy.
Back 21st of November, apparently, which happens to be game week 9.
After the international break.
Thing. I don't think you're going to buy the City defensive assets now anyway.
Not before Liverpool,
I'm not even sure.
No.
Even those fixtures, I mean, to be honest, Burnley, West Brom, Fulham, you do look at it and you think, fucking hell, it's got to be 3 clean sheets, hasn't it? But is it ever with them? They'll go 5-0 up and concede a silly chance.
Yeah,
like, you know that, right?
Yeah.
So, and then you feel like you're missing out on the big points quite badly. Something to think about. I wouldn't rule out me going down that route if it becomes difficult for me to get to De Bruyne and Sterling, for example.
Burnley 0, Chelsea 3.
So Chelsea played against Burnley how I wish my team had played against them last week, and made this look as routine as it possibly could be, winning at Burnley. They were very good, Chelsea, very good. Credit to Lampard because he gets slated tactically all the time. But the decision to play Mount and Havertz in advanced, basically central midfield positions with N'Golo Kante sitting there was very, very good. Mount, I thought particularly was the standout player on the pitch for me. What they did really well, which Tottenham didn't do against Burnley, was move the ball quickly across the pitch. Every time Mount got the ball from inside left, he was looking to spread it out towards Reece James and Ziyech. Every single time. And his passing during the game was very good, particularly in the first half. I'm not sure we'll see that again from Chelsea. I think Lampard probably identified that Tottenham played a pedestrian game at Burnley, and the best thing you can do is move the ball quickly to move them about. And that's what Chelsea did, and they did it very well. Ziyech was good. Timo Werner was good. I'm never fulfilled with confidence with Tammy Abraham through the middle. But I can understand why he played him in this particular fixture, similarly to some of the players that Mourinho picked against Burnley. I think he's gone, I'll take that little bit of extra height there. He's obviously good aerially, Abraham, also actually defensively on set pieces and stuff. This was routine for Chelsea. The 2 fullbacks were fantastic. Both flew forward. Basically, they attacked throughout the game Chelsea with 7 players and kind of overwhelmed Burnley and made sure that the game was constantly played in their half. Where I said Tottenham didn't give free kicks away against Burnley, Chelsea made sure that they were going to play the game in Burnley's half, basically.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter. You're not worried about Wood or Barnes going in behind or anything like that. So they took the chance and they played very well. This was good from Chelsea. They feel like they're beginning to turn it on to me. They're not conceding goals either. Mendy in goals making a big difference. He's getting a lot of interest from a lot of people at the moment. I would possibly feel personally that I'd missed the Burnley game. That would annoy me a little bit. But I won't put anybody off going for James, Chilwell, Zuma or Mendy. I think they're all
defensively,
reasonable.
I agree with you. I've already got James, so that's it. Midfield-wise, there's a number of options. Now, Pulisic, no one's going near at the moment until we know he's got consistent run of fitness.
Thanks, James. Punch me again.
But Ziyech has now come back in and delivered the goods. Mount is a cheaper option. He kind of sits in the same bracket as Foden for me, where he's cheap enough that, you know, you take a bit of the rough with the smooth, but when he can deliver, he can really deliver. Werner, I think, was underpriced at the start of the season at 9.5. He's at 9.3.
Really well.
So I don't see any reason to want to move him on. Havertz is the one that actually is the most likely to be sold by me. I'm happy to keep James and Werner. And if I need to get Kevin De Bruyne in, I can only have 5 midfielders. Havertz is the one that I'm most likely to sacrifice.
To be honest, for me, just probably none of them work for what I need to do with my FPL team this week.
Yeah.
And once I've let the Burnley Sheffield United fixtures go and then it begins to get harder for them following Newcastle, I'm probably not going to bother. It's not for me. I wouldn't consider Mason Mount, despite what I've said of him. I really feel like that really is going to pain you. I don't feel like he's going to get the attacking returns that Foden might get playing his position, even though probably between the two of them they'll play a similar number of minutes. That's how I would feel at the moment.
I think you'd be surprised by the time we get to the end of the season, net there may be very similar on points returns. But yeah, it's an interesting debate to have. There's other assets that are better. See, the price jump from Mason Mount to Havertz, Ziyech or Pulisic is not as big as the price jump from Foden to Sterling and De Bruyne, for example, which is why you're probably right in the sense that it doesn't make sense to go with Mount. You may as well get the better options. With City, you might not be able to afford the better options.
For Burnley,
and also the fixture turn in game week 10 for City is something else. Man City, that's where like owning Foden,
and where
you're
it
going to hold him.
turns more difficult for Chelsea as
Correct,
well.
yeah.
Sorry.
Burnley, 1 point in 7.
In trouble.
They are, aren't they?
Big trouble. Far more than I thought this time last week because I felt like they were getting back to what they were good at against us. Like, look, hopefully for them, Ben Mee will be back this week. It seems to be ongoing.
You can't be a Premier League squad and be so reliant on one player. It can't be a case of Ben Mee's out, we're in the shits.
Brighton and Palace are Burnley's next 2.
I mean, Brighton are going to play high energy. They're going to give them the runaround.
I'm not sure they are at the moment. We'll come on to them in a little bit.
Because of the internal war that's raging. So if the same Brighton turn up that played against Man United, for example, or we've seen, they'll give Burnley a hell of a game.
These next 2 are really important for Burnley. Really important. Then it gets rough. It really gets choppy from the fixture perspective for them. And I think if you've got, you should have bought. I feel like the only player that's possibly not worth boughting is the one that I've got. It's Charlie Taylor. Because he can sit there as a nice kind of backup sub. That's it, basically. He's going to drop in price as well. He's hanging on. He's been hanging on every day at the moment to the 4.5 million. But I just feel like it's not that important one for me to move when I've got bigger fires, etc. So he'll sit there for me. He's a decent backup. I don't think, generally speaking, even Brighton away this week, I don't think you particularly want to be playing these assets.
No.
I mean, if you're still sitting there with Chris Wood, etc., accept it now and move it on, I think.
Yeah.
If you can.
Liverpool 2, West Ham 1. Good performance from West Ham to keep Liverpool to 2 goals. And I think tactically set up well, defended well. Disappointing to come away with only 0 points in the end and not even get a draw out of the game. Interesting debate for most people now is what to do with Liverpool defence.
It's not a debate. Everybody else is leaving except me.
Yeah, true. Even I'm going to be moving away from double defence at some point. It may not be this week, just because I'd rather wait and see what happens in the international break. But
to be honest, the Man City game now gives everybody the perfect excuse to say, enough. Enough.
And the games after that are not particularly easy. I mean, Leicester straight away after that. Then they do have Brighton, then Wolves, Tottenham a couple of games after that. It's not great.
Shout out to FPL Drunk on Twitter, who said, hear that? That's the sound of every single owner of Trent Alexander-Arnold in FPL screaming, fuck this, I'm selling. After obviously West Ham scored against Liverpool on Saturday. And I responded, not every single one.
No.
It's just nowhere near my biggest problem. And I look beyond them fixtures, even the more difficult ones for Liverpool, which are basically Leicester, Wolves and Tottenham all at home. I think they can be clean sheets as well. I really do. Alisson's back. They've obviously conceded in the last two games. One because Joe Gomez sloppy header, and that would have happened if Van Dijk was in the team or not. Although he might have been playing on the right side defence rather than the left side.
I don't know if Van Dijk would have made that header.
No, but what I mean is the fact that he's made a bad header wouldn't be changed by the fact that Van Dijk was in the team or not, other than he might have been in that specific isolation moment in a slightly different position. The goalkeeper's back. It's important. The goal they conceded Sheffield United was a penalty. I'm not making excuses. I'm telling to everybody else, sell them. Fuck it, sell them. In fact, I hope you all sell them. I hope you all sell them, because I'm not. I'm going to be stubborn about it. And I know I'm going to get so many tweets. James, stop being stubborn about this. I'm just telling you that it is nowhere near the biggest problem I've got. And they have the capability at any time to go off. And that includes against Manchester City this weekend.
So let's put it in a different perspective for the listeners. Andy, Let's Talk FPL, I'm pretty sure, said on Twitter that Liverpool only kept 2 clean sheets in the first 13 last season, something along those lines. They've kept 1 so far, so they need to keep 1 more to match that.
Are you saying this is deja vu?
I'm saying that the issue is not around Liverpool's clean sheets. The issue is on the lack of attacking returns that we've got from them. So is it so rather than worry about those clean sheet points, the fact that we've only had 1 assist and 0 goals from Trent so far this season, is that trend going to continue? Forget the clean sheets.
What do you think?
I mean, I don't think he's going to get anywhere near what he got last season. I think it's not even going to be close. Last season was 4 goals and 15 assists. He could match the goal tally. Assist tally, I don't think he's going to pick up 14 assists in his remaining 31 games.
No,
that's an assist every other week he needs now, between now and the end of the season.
It's interesting though, isn't it? You go, I don't think.
Yeah. I don't think
he will. Don't think. So you're saying it's possible he could get an assist every other game?
I'm not going to say he's not, because I just don't use that kind of language where he's not going to do it. No, it doesn't work for me.
We're not putting words in your mouth. We're just
anything
saying.
Can happen in this crazy season. He's very, very unlikely to match his goals and assist total from last season.
I agree. No doubt about it. Do I wish that he'd been sitting in my team for the last 7 game weeks, having done next to nothing? No, of course. But for me, it's not going to be right. For all the rest of you, you should sell the pair of them, get 4.5 million defenders, get the money up front, etc., and crack on.
Midfield, I think, is where it's at potentially as well.
Expect Joel Matip to play on one leg at the Etihad on Sunday, is what I would say. Because despite all the praise for Nat Phillips, 4.0 against West Ham, if Klopp came out and said on Friday, do you know what, he's going to play at the Etihad, I might leave Trent and Robertson on the bench. I think that if this fella plays at the Etihad, they will get destroyed.
There's every chance they potentially will anyway.
I think it was a perfect storm. West Ham's threat being aerially with Allaire. Go in and defend and not worry too much about the other things in the game. Get your positioning right was good. He dominated in the air. It's not to say it was a bad performance, not at all. It's to say that Manchester City will be a very different fixture. Yeah. Very, very different. And don't suddenly think that this 4.0 defender should be of interest. One other budget player at Liverpool obviously might be of interest to people is Diogo Jota.
The debate now is Jota versus Firmino.
6.3 million 3.3% owned. It's now 3 goals in 214 minutes for him so far this season. He's made a very bright start to his Liverpool career. There are a few who obviously believe he should come into that team for Roberto Firmino. I would suggest that if that did happen, Salah would go through the middle.
They'd switch to this 4-2-3-1.
No, if Jota come in for Firmino,
so Jota would move
Jota
to the
would
right.
go left. I think Mane would go right, and Salah would go up front, or Mane would go up front, and Salah would stay right. One or the other. I don't think Jota would go and play the same role that Firmino's playing. He's a very different player. I think he's another one of them. He needs to see the game.
Yeah.
He needs to look at it. He needs to see a defender's shirt number before going at someone. Firmino is just not doing Firmino things at the moment. I don't think Manchester City away is necessarily the game to bring him out, though. He's a big game player. He's played this game a number of times. He's performed very well in this game in the past. So I think at the moment, Jota as the impact substitute is still the better way for Liverpool to go. From an FPL perspective, I would need to know that he's getting in that team to consider.
Yeah.
At the moment. I think what you can't do, say I've got Phil Foden. Because I've got Phil Foden, I can't really afford to carry other players like that. Does that make sense?
Complete sense.
If I didn't have any rotation issues, you could make a strong case, I think particularly after City, that could this guy in 25 minutes every week regularly potentially get you a return late in games, even as a substitute? Do you know what? There might be an argument for that. And depending on what Liverpool do in the Champions League, it's worth saying they've won their first 2 as well, although they've got the big test to come with Atalanta now in their next 2 Champions League games. That it could be that Jota will see minutes in some of these better fixtures that are coming up. And then, of course, he's interesting. If he was going to play in the front 3 for Liverpool at 6.3 million...
Oh, yeah.
You want it, right?
Of course.
But I want to know that he's going to be a part of it before I'd consider it. It's not on my radar at the moment.
West Ham assets...
Sum it up. You sum it up best, so go for it.
I wouldn't buy any.
There you go.
Right, now, without Antonio, I can't...
well, talking of Antonio, is this the Antonio tired Norwich moment for
Yeah,
you?
Antonio's in my squad.
Yeah.
I don't care if he loses value. I'm going to leave it as late as possible before I want as much news as possible
Having
before I
waited
move
this long,
on.
you should, yes.
Yeah. I don't think Fornals or Bowen are necessarily as good assets without Antonio there, so I wouldn't recommend anyone going for either of those two. If you want Soufal, Masuaku, or any of the defensive guys, I actually don't think that's too bad. With the run that we've got now as a 4.5, I think they're all viable, but attacking, no.
Antonio, home to Fulham. Pulisic, home to Sheffield United. And who's the other player? Danny Ings, home to Newcastle. There's a good chance someone's sitting there with their FPL squad with all 3 of those players at the moment. It's not impossible. Don't expect any of them to play this week, would be my advice. But wait, the interesting one...
Mainly because, the other thing is, because the international break is right behind it, why risk players? That's the thing, right? To be honest,
you've got it.
Yeah.
The interesting one might be that unfolds this week might be Pulisic. Purely because Lampard's comments on him were...
cautious more than anything
else.
else.
Well, he said probably weeks, but it was also on the day, right? Where the incidents happened. It might be that he's come into training on the Sunday or Monday and felt a lot better. Now, that's unlikely, but that could be the case, and we wouldn't know till... We'll admit they've got a Champions League game this week, so we'll have an update in the next day or 2. So at least we'll get the Pulisic news early. But yeah, if you've got Antonio, if you've waited it this long, you've got to wait till David Moyes speaks for the weekend, I think.
Yeah.
I wouldn't expect him to play personally.
Villa 3, Southampton 4. The first half of this game, it was Ings' regret for me. And the second half was...
Ings' relief.
I sold Danny Ings for Harry Kane. In the last few weeks, Harry Kane has matched Danny Ings. So there's no issue there in terms of I haven't missed out on points necessarily, but Ings is just so reliable. JWP doing what JWP does, stick it in the top corner consistently.
Oh, he's the best at it.
He's so good. But you're looking at Ollie Watkins on the score sheet, Grealish picking up the assist and returns.
Just interested, just to add on Ward-Prowse before I forget. Obviously, if Danny Ings is out for a sustained period, and touch wood, it looked bad. Hopefully, he's obviously recovers quickly. If he is out for a while, expect JWP to be on the pens as well.
Yeah,
it's important that. He's so good at that free kick taking. He goes over the wall every time, and he never goes the other way. Every single time he wraps over the wall, and if he gets it right, you can't stop it. And someone said to me at the weekend, said, "Why don't you just not put a wall there?" So Southampton have put a ball there.
He's still going to put it in the top corner.
Southampton just put a ball there.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter. Say, go on then, knock it over our wall instead. It just wouldn't make no difference.
Yeah.
So, expect to see a lot of teams not conceding free kick. The second one, because it's so close, it's ridiculous. You could have probably had 2 Martinez in goals and he wouldn't have got near it. And I felt a bit sorry for him because he had no chance with any of these goals, including the first one scored by Yannick Vestergaard, who is obviously catching the attention of a few people at the moment, as his last 5 FPL returns are, since coming into the team in game week 3, are 6, 7, 7, 6, 7. That's nice. 33 points in 5 game weeks. I feel like we've been here before with Vestergaard, actually. The caution I'd say on the goal, John McGinn's marking him on the goal. I don't get this. I've seen this a lot in games. It makes me so nervous. I'm glad Tottenham don't do it. Why have you got John McGinn marking Vestergaard? If you pull the free kick away from Villa's best headers like Ward-Prowse does, Vestergaard's got a free run on it. He can't miss.
Yep.
It makes me nervous that teams defend like that. So be cautious of that if you've got Villa defensive assets. At 4-0 after Ings scored, I genuinely thought they were going to go and get 6 or 7. They just looked so ruthless when they went forward. But then full credit to Villa, that when the final whistle went, I had the feeling of, bloody hell, if they had a couple more minutes there, they'd have actually got the 4-4. That's how it felt. Felt like Southampton were beginning to collapse. And it's worth obviously noting, we've mentioned Danny Ings' injury. Bednarek picked up a header injury as well, where the poor fella was really lucky not to break his neck, actually, was bad. And Ryan Bertrand had a hamstring knock as well. So defensively, they could well have concerns before that Newcastle fixture that's coming up. Che Adams remains much on my radar. What we don't know is the impact of if Ings is out, if it's good or bad for him. Now, my instinct is it must be bad.
Yeah.
But it might be that he gets the sense of...
I mean, Ings played the lone striker role for the first 2-3 quarters of last season, really. Yeah. Adams can fill that slot potentially. I don't think it makes him any less of a threat, really. And he's cheap, right?
It might be, and you never know how this is going to work, but it might be that he goes, shit, I'm the man now. Like, he feels like he belongs. Where he's probably always been, I'm Danny Ings' partner, do you know what I mean? Whereas it becomes, I'm main man now. And there's no way of knowing how he'll react. Because Danny Ings has become a very good creative player as well. So that you are taking some more than just a goal scorer out of Southampton's team. They're obviously going to be weaker if he doesn't play. But 5.8 million, he still offers great value. My intended move this week was Jimenez to Che Adams to then move some of the money in midfield. That's what I wanted to do. I would still like to go for him. When I break that down, I think about it. Jimenez to Che Adams as part of another hit doesn't feel right. I'm going to have to let it go, I think. Grealish.
I made a mistake, James.
What was that?
I made the assumption a couple of weeks ago that Ross Barkley at 6 million could probably cover off Jack Grealish at 7 million. At the time, it really felt, you know what, they could easily both start delivering. I think Grealish is different gravy.
The interesting thing on Grealish, if you look at the last...
might even make that move, Barkley to Grealish.
I think his XG was nearly the highest of players that didn't take penalties this game week. When most owners would have been sitting there with half hour to go thinking, he's getting absolutely nothing here. And even at the end, you go, okay, he's got me an assist. Great, he's got me a 5-pointer. To end up with a 15-pointer is absolutely brilliant for owners. 9 returns in 6 game weeks is no longer a joke. He'd obviously had the 2 blanks, but then the Leeds game he could have easily scored twice. And obviously the Leicester game, he was absolutely brilliant in that game. Overdid the ball a little bit, the final ball rather. And obviously Barkley scored the late goal in that particular game. So it's possible what influences you. Barkley played Liverpool and Leicester and scored in both, right? You think, okay, great. Yeah. It's not to say that Ross Barkley won't or can't. I just think Jack Grealish is worth the more.
He's consistent. And you look at the fixtures after Arsenal, they're going to Brighton, West Ham, Newcastle, Wolves, Burnley, West Brom, Palace. That's a solid run all the way through to Boxing Day.
Yeah, literally up to, for game week 16 wildcard is literally up to that. Perfect.
Yeah, I think if it's not off the cards that I'd just make that sideways move to Grealish from Barkley and just be done with it and get it out of the way. Newcastle 2, Everton 1. Callum Wilson, team of the season.
One thing just on Grealish, I did say this on our Patreon Slack channel, the penalty, because there's been some debate about this, who should have been taking the penalty. The way I read it was Grealish won the penalty, Grealish picked the ball up, walked past Watkins as if to go, no, I'm taking this. But it was my opinion is that Watkins was a designated penalty taker and still will be. That's my opinion on it. My opinion was Grealish had the hump with the way the game was going, won the penalty himself and said, I'm taking it. And then common sense has prevailed if Watkins, because he's captain Grealish, right? He should know better.
Yeah.
Common sense prevailed if Watkins was the intended penalty taker. There was a few people saying he would give it to Watkins to get his confidence up. Is it that long ago he got the Liverpool hat-trick?
Yeah, mad. No,
I think Watkins was and is the penalty taker. That's how I read that. Sorry, Suj.
That's all right. Callum Wilson is definitely the penalty taker at Newcastle.
It definitely is.
6.5 million, consistently returning. Outscored Dominic Calvert-Lewin this season so far.
Unbelievably.
I don't know if it is unbelievably. If you said you've got Callum Wilson with Almiron, St. Maximin, Ryan Fraser providing him ammunition, he's going to score, isn't he?
Okay. So the reality on Callum Wilson's returns. 3 penalties, which we know, and we saw more penalties again this weekend, it's worth saying. 3 penalties scored against Tottenham, Burnley and Everton. An assist at Wolves for winning the free kick, which Murphy scored. It was barely an opportunity. These other returns are... obviously, he got a goal and assist against Burnley as well. The assist against Burnley was a layoff to St. Maximin on the halfway line, basically.
Yep.
St. Maximin put one on a plate for him against Burnley. He's obviously tapped in against Everton. You can't take away the fact he's scoring in front of the net. That's been in the right place at the right time. I'm saying that some of his returns may be a little bit of an illusion.
10 bonus points so far this season is incredible.
Crazy, yes. 6 goals, 2 assists. It's not criticised the player in any way. What I would warn is when you get a Newcastle attacking player, it won't take more than one blank for you to get nervous and bored with it. It's honestly, they are the sort of team, if you own an attacking player from them, it is going to frustrate you immediately. The flip.
We know St. Maximin had to get bombed out so quickly.
Southampton, Chelsea, next 2. Not the best, also not the worst. Palace, Villa, West Brom, Leeds, Fulham up to game week 14 before they play Manchester City on Boxing Day is actually an interesting run of fixtures for Newcastle. But I wonder in an odd way if it makes it a bit harder.
There's a little bit more expectation on Newcastle this season than last season, in my opinion.
Judging by my chat with Sire on Clash of the Correspondents last week, FPL Footballer, there isn't.
Why?
Because the mood at that football club is just not right. They feel very passive at the moment. They're obviously in the same position of everybody else. They can't go to the games, but had this whole ownership thing in the summer, and
put that to one side.
Last season, feel like results like this don't matter.
Last season, you would say that they over-delivered. They did way better than we thought they would with Steve Bruce in charge. They had a very good season. In the summer, they have strengthened the squad. It's better than it was this time last season, in my opinion, especially from an attacking point of view. So why should they not have better expectations this season than what they did last season? They're still defensively not hideous. I think Hayden is a very good defensive midfielder. Him alongside Hendrick gives them a decent base. I think that they are going to be better than a lot of people think. They should have better expectations than last season. I don't mind Callum Wilson at 6.5. If Antonio was out for a long period, I'd consider Callum Wilson.
They've conceded more shots than any other team, Newcastle. They've conceded more shots on target than any other team, Newcastle. Their expected goals conceded is the highest. What they don't do, and this is to their credit, is they don't give up too many big chances in comparison to others.
If you remove the Spurs game from that, how does that change the stats? Because Kyle Darlow made 11 saves in that game.
But how many saves did he make against Manchester United? You can't keep doing that. A load, right?
Yeah. If you said, okay, take the you're talking about two of the top 6 teams there. Tottenham were in free-flowing form then. Manchester United are decent. Outside of that,
the reality is, for Newcastle, that last year they finished higher than what the majority of the metrics will tell you that they should have been relegated. The metrics at the moment are telling me again, and will be telling others, that they should be near the bottom of the league. In my opinion, when we did clash at the correspondence last week, we said that we thought Newcastle would get something out of the game because of Everton's issues with the injuries, suspensions, etc. And we even went to say that if James didn't play for Everton, we thought Newcastle would win. That's what I predicted anyway. So I'm not surprised. Everton showed no tempo or aggression in that game until Calvert-Lewin scored. The only player who wanted to know in that second half and play with tempo for Everton was Bernard, in my opinion. And then once Calvert-Lewin scored, they all wanted to have a go, and it got quite nervous for Newcastle. The Everton have to ask themselves, why was that? Now, admittedly, they got themselves into a position where they end up playing Delph at left back, Iwobi at right back. I get at that stage you're throwing numbers forward. But if Everton had started this football match with the tempo they finished with, even with all the players they had absent, they would have pissed this. They didn't play properly, Everton, in my opinion. It is worth, from Newcastle perspective as well, keeping an eye on St. Maximin's position. Although, again, if you own... It looked like he was going to go off on half-time. He spent quite a while whinging around and limping and stuff. He is liable to get injuries. Even though he looks like he's going to begin to play a central position in a 5-3-2 at the moment, he would not interest me. Everton, I think, will have James back this week. They'll be better for it. And when they walk into Fulham in game week 9, they've obviously got Dean back this week as well. When they walk into Fulham in game week 9, they will have Richarlison back as well. As it stands, my intention would be to captain Dominic Calvert-Lewin in game week 9.
Against Fulham.
That would be where I'm at the moment.
A few games still to get through, James. We thought we were going to be quicker. Are we bollocks?
Of course not.
Man United 0, Arsenal 1. Aubameyang breaks his 5-game blank streak.
Assisted by Paul Pogba. Whoa, this could be a podcast in itself on both of these teams in a certain way. I possibly should have put it in people's poll vote, but yesterday's podcast was quite good, by the way. You should give that a listen. United. Fuck, man.
Do you own any Manchester United assets at the moment?
No, well, I nearly bought Rashford, didn't I?
Are you intending to buy any Manchester United assets at the moment?
The plan in thinking Rashford was to get that ready for captaincy for the West Brom game in game week 9. Now I'm not sure I want to bother at all.
I have no Manchester United assets on my radar whatsoever.
I must say, I thought Arsenal's first half performance was genuinely outstanding. They well deserved to win. They gave United a really, really difficult tactical problem in the first half. Really good from Arteta and the players who carried it out as well. Their pressing as a team was so good. And it wasn't 100-mile-an-hour rock and roll kind of Liverpool, Klopp's Liverpool at its best, or even Tottenham's Pochettino. But they went and pressed properly in the right areas as a team. There was a 15 to 20-minute spell in the first half where Manchester United just could not pass the ball into Arsenal's half.
Did you see the tweet? I think it was the Arsenal official account of the 91st minute. The pressing.
He was
the whole team pressing in the 91st minute. It was incredible. It was really, really good.
El Neni and Partey's partnership in central midfield was really good. I discussed this on the Patreon pod a little bit yesterday in terms of what they've now got with... I spoke about Ceballos and Xhaka in the restart period about playing in straight lines.
Yeah.
And so did El Neni and Partey here. Don't be confused thinking they were two blocking in a 4-2-3-1. This wasn't like that. They played as central midfield players. El Neni went and did most of the pressing, but if Partey went and broke beyond... El Neni put the brakes on. El Neni is a very, very... Yeah. I don't need to see them playing well.
It was specifically El Neni that was pressing. El
Neni, for me, is a very limited footballer. He is okay on the ball. He's pressing in this match, but he genuinely was brilliant. He's not the sort of player that's going to get credit for the work that he put in. I think... Tim Cahill described Partey as like big brother to El Neni, and I got that reference and what it meant. Partey reminds me a little bit of when Wanyama came to Tottenham, and he was beast mode. tackle, interceptions, passing, never give it away, could break beyond. Wanyama, when he broke into the Tottenham team, was the same. He played alongside Dembele. And except the few occasions, like when we played the 4-1-4-1 when we beat Guardiola City, very often it was a 2, but they played higher up. They weren't sitters. They played alongside each other. Wanyama invariably would go a bit deeper because Dembele was so good at carrying the ball. But it reminded me a bit of that. And I think Partey looks like the player that Arsenal have been missing for an extremely long time. And I think depending on the type of opponent they're going to play against, probably represents who his partner will be at the moment. Whether they want to go and press and use an El Neni, whether they want to retain the possession and have slow build-up like Xhaka, or whether they want someone else who can also break and carry through lines like Ceballos. And it actually gives them a really interesting mix and allows them to do different things. Gabriel at centre-half
so good.
Might prove to be an even better signing. He looks excellent. I should add that I think he was very lucky not to be sent off.
Yep. 2 yellows.
The second yellow, if he hadn't been booked the first time,
it was
he would have been
definitely
booked the
a
second
first
time.
Yellow and probably got away with it not being a second yellow potentially.
He should have gone, really. But looks really good. It just everything about them at the moment, defensively, is so much better.
So, what if from an FPL point of view, though?
I can't answer that one.
Are you going to look at any assets there?
Not at the moment.
It's why I may end up with Leno as just the easy option. I mean, that was the first clean sheet since the opening day of the season. I don't know if I see that many more clean sheets, but potentially.
They still have massive creativity issues to counter what I've said about them defensively. And I think, generally speaking, Arsenal games as a rule are going to be quite low scoring for the foreseeable.
They'll nick 1-0s and 2-1s maybe.
And they'll probably lose the odd game like that, like the Leicester game last week as well.
Yeah.
I mean, the Leicester game felt very flat, but actually, until Vardy came on the pitch, again, they gave away nothing defensively. They really are beginning to look a good side defensively. I think it's going to take some time to add the creative element to the team at the moment, which means if we keep having games where there's madness, like Villa Southamptons and stuff like that, Arsenal, through sheer consistency, could get close to top 4. But the same is their creativity could mean that they have one of the best defensive seasons and end up finishing about 7th or 8th. That's how I'd see it at the moment. The reality is it's Aubameyang's first goal for 5, and it's the first time he's really looked like scoring over that period as well. He's not had a lot of efforts. And as well as they played yesterday, the best moments like they had, like Willian hitting the bar and stuff like that, they weren't clear-cut chances. They're just not opening teams up at the moment. So to buy Arsenal assets for FPL, I'd be looking defensively. Leno would maybe be of interest. If I bought an attacking one, it would be Saka. But like we covered on Monday's People's Poll last week, where his numbers are under 6 million really stand out and look good, I don't know if he's going to play next week.
Yeah, that's always the concern.
For me personally, like I've already said, when I've already got one player like that in Foden, I don't need a second.
Nah. What has happened at Spurs? We're going to go to Spurs 2, Brighton 1.
United get rid of them.
From when you were inspired a couple of weeks ago to triple up on the Spurs attack, to then the last 2 fixtures, which have been low scoring, 1-0 against Burnley, 2-1 against Brighton.
What do you want me to say? Why has it happened?
I don't really care about that so much. Like, I just think the listeners are going to be interested in what do they do with their Spurs assets, Kane and Son.
All the listeners want to hear is why did I sell Gareth Bale?
There's one more week with West Brom that you hold on to your Spurs assets, no doubt about it. Reguilon, for those that own, because I see Reguilon, I mean, he's 4.3% owned in the game, but in Twitter, I feel like there's a lot more ownership of him. He's picked up a couple of assists. Yeah, fine, stick with him if you want to, but
and then sell him after West Brom.
Yeah. I'm not buying any Spurs defensive assets because I don't see any clean sheets at all. I never feel confident there's one around the corner.
The only reason, in my opinion, that you should be buying a Spurs player now is if you want one of the boys in to captain them this game week. That's it.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Harry Kane's ownership captaincy numbers this week are going to be mad. Genuinely mad.
He was the most captain last week, I think.
With City and Liverpool playing each other, Everton playing Manchester United, Arsenal playing Villa,
And I don't think many people got Arsenal attacking assets anyway. But I think it would have been one pre-game week 1. We'd have all looked at, if we'd looked ahead, you'd have gone Aubameyang v Villa before the start of the season, gone, that might be the best. It's clearly Tottenham. Kane or Son are gonna, I think, have almost exclusivity on the captaincy this week. I think the alternatives will be, people might look at people like Werner. It's the only one really I can see. I don't see many having the confidence to go De Bruyne or Salah when Tottenham have got this fixture. So that would be the only reason to go and buy, is you want it as a shield to go with the captaincy this week, which is particularly for Kane, is going to be huge.
Is there any temptation for you to go Son over Kane captaincy?
None.
Stick with Harry Kane and be done with it.
Yeah. You can have all the theories you want in terms of Son getting in behind against Brighton. Never happened. Son won't get behind against Burnley. Scored. I'll go with the guy with the consistency that I trust to know that I think, yes, Son got 4 against Southampton, etc. But generally speaking, if you said to me right now, one of them 2 boys is going to get a hat-trick at the weekend, I would fancy it would be Harry Kane. So that's why I'll be going with Harry personally. On Bale, don't buy. If you've got, probably hold, but judge on what you see on the game on Thursday. I sold him, as I said earlier, purely on the principle that I knew he would not start. I 100% knew, and it was too much money to be leaving a player again that I knew wouldn't start. And as I said to you on Tottenham earlier for patrons, that I think if Solly March hadn't got injured, he wouldn't have even brought Bale on. I think he took an advantage of a situation to know that Brighton's left-hand side had suddenly become weak. And Spurs played very well for the first 3.5 minutes that Gareth Bale was on the pitch. Other than that, we started the game quite well. In fact, we had more possession than Brighton in the first 15 minutes or so, and then it completely died off a cliff. Just quickly, because I know plenty will want my opinions on this, the penalty that Spurs won, it's a free kick to Brighton all day, every day. The goal that Brighton scored is
it's a foul on Højbjerg.
It's literally nobody that doesn't think it's a foul. That's all I got to say on them incidents. I don't think I'm adding anything that anybody doesn't really know.
I need to call out Clinton Morrison, because the guy irritated me so much. I was listening on 5 Live, and it's not a personal thing that I dislike the guy, but his exact words were, Kane is now trying to play like Firmino. And then his next sentence after that was, but he does score a few more goals. I was like, but he's not trying to play like Firmino. Kane is playing his role as he is. He's not woke up and said, you know what, Bobby Firmino plays this role quite well. Let me try and play that role. No, he's evolved his game to play slightly deeper and be a bit more creative.
Yeah.
But who plays the Bobby Firmino role better, Bobby Firmino or Harry Kane? Right now, Harry Kane is doing a better job of bringing other people into play and creating more chances for his teammates around him.
It's different. Firmino gives Liverpool an element of control. It's the pressing defensively as well, which people don't realise. Often think, Firmino the creator. It's the defensive stuff that Firmino does.
Okay, well, Harry Kane's knocking away corners in his own box more than anyone else.
It opens the space for Salah and Mane in the same way. We're obviously now seeing with Son, and hopefully now see with Bale in the future as well.
I just think
there are similarities.
Sure, I just think it's doing a massive disservice to what Kane is doing to say he's trying to be like Firmino.
There's a lot of Liverpool fans who think that's disservice to Firmino.
Well, they're wrong.
They are
I just
different,
think they're wrong.
But there are. I can see the comparison. I don't think it's as nuts as you think it is to suggest that. On Brighton, just briefly, I thought Adam Lallana particularly was exceptional. So good in the game. Don't consider for an FPL perspective. Obviously, Trossard played through the middle. We have heard a rumour that Neil Maupay has not been at training at Brighton. It is no more than that. It's just a rumour. I have no idea if that's true or not. But you should be aware of it and probably begin to think about selling him if you still have him. I have no idea if Matt Ryan will be coming back into the Brighton team or not. I have never heard of the lad Sanchez who came in. He did okay. I would suggest he's not better than Matt Ryan. So I don't know what's going on there. It might be that because I'm going to lose the value on it and it's been really bad, that in reluctance I have to sell him anyway. Because I will kick myself if he drops to 4.4 and then Potter says, oh yeah, he ain't playing, mate. So I'll be keeping a close eye on the markets the next couple of days.
for myself, in terms of replacement there, Fabianski, Gaeta, Martinez, Leno would probably all be under consideration. I won't go to Mendy now.
It's 5.1 now. Mendy's had a cheeky little price rise. Fulham 2, West Brom 0.
Fucking West Brom.
They're going down.
I mean, fucking the pair of them, if we're really honest about it. Great goal from Ola Aina. Tom Kearney played really high for Fulham in this game, probably higher than he's played in other games. It was interesting that Loftus-Cheek was left out. I think that's because Reed is more likely to get into the box and support Mitrovic, which they obviously felt winning this particular game was essential as opposed to domination on the match. West Brom were just flat. I already mentioned earlier about Pereira's lack of involvement in the game. Just really flat. Didn't overly threaten Fulham. They never looked like they were particularly going to get back in the game from 2-0 down. I can't see either of these sides staying up at the moment, and I don't mean that disrespectfully to either of them. I think the majority of people will agree with that sentiment at the moment. I said that it was a massive game that Fulham had to win, and they did. And I think they've got some interesting players going forward. What isn't interesting is what happens now, which is the fixture list, which you can argue whether West Ham away is the beginning of a tough run or not. But, I mean, their fixture list over the next 5 games, if they picked up more than a point, it would be a success. It's really bad.
Yeah.
Really, really bad. And they're just going to have to hang in there at the moment, I think. They will, honestly, they will have more of the ball at West Ham on Saturday. Don't be surprised by that. To the naked eye, you'll think, they're playing all right. I think you'll win comfortably, mate.
Yeah.
To be honest. Genuinely, literally no interest in buying anybody from either of these two teams from an FPL perspective. If you got Mitrovic's 2 assists, I would take it and run. I think it's the right time to move off now. 2 goals, 2 assists is not disastrous in the 7 games that he's played. It's fairly reasonable, actually. But then you remember it was 2 goals against Leeds and 2 assists against West Brom, and they're about to walk into some very difficult stuff. So I would move off. If I don't sell Pereira, it'll only be because I don't want to take a hit and I don't see the value, rather than I don't want to sell. I've got to get him out. He's not doing anything.
He'll do you another 59 minutes, which will be very
He will
painful.
almost definitely score against Tottenham at the weekend. I've said that.
Let's wrap up the games, James, with Leeds 1, Leicester 4. We said this would happen to Leeds every now and then, where they'd end up getting a spanking. Yeah, you said it.
I've taken a lot of stick for saying that, by the way.
Okay, fair play.
I did also say it would probably happen in games you didn't expect it to. Although that said, I don't think anybody had in their mind thinking Leicester would get 4. And it wasn't really that sort of game, but Leicester were very, very ruthless on the break with the type of goals they scored. Bielsa was very honest and humble, as he often is actually after games, and saying fair score, no complaints. It's worth saying that had Pablo Hernandez equalised when he hit the bar to make it 2-2, Leeds probably would have gone on and won, because it felt like pressure was coming on Leicester. But I thought the makeshift defence that they've got at the moment is dealing with things very well. Fofana, again, almost went by unnoticed, and I think that's a really good sign for a new young player. The fact that you're almost not noticing him. And you might think, he's hidden kind of in between the Justin and Fuchs, who really are fullbacks who are playing inside as wide centre-halves at the moment. He's just going through games unfussy. They don't feel like he's got a rick in him. If it comes to him, he heads it. If he's got the thing, he doesn't give it away. Looks a really good player. It's not to say he's an FPL asset at the moment. I think with the defensive issues that they've got, that I wouldn't be interested in buying Leicester players personally currently, particularly with Wolves and Liverpool coming up next. You mentioned to me earlier about Vardy potentially, because they've got Fulham coming up
10 million.
Game week 10.
7 goals already.
It'd be an interesting one, because a lot of people will probably get to that point and be sitting with Harry Kane in their team. And if he was to blank, say, at the weekend and then against Man City, I wonder if people think, well, that's easy. Kane and Vardy, captain him against Fulham. And I think you can look at target them to a certain extent. There's a lot of us, I mean, we've said basically it looks like it's Tottenham captaincy this week. A lot would have gone Antonio. Genuinely, a lot would have differentially gone for Antonio if he'd been available.
From the community, I don't think from the mainstream.
The Twitter community, yes, potentially. I think, a few very good players who are not on Twitter as well would have gone Antonio as a captaincy, as a differential. And you look beyond, you think, Well, yeah, actually, to go back to Fulham, of course you can take advantage of them, because after West Ham, it's Everton. I've spoken about the idea that I'm probably going to captain Calvert-Lewin. Then it's Leicester, and you think, yeah, it could be Vardy. Then they've got Man City and Liverpool. So it could be between game weeks 9, 10, 11, 12. It really is target Fulham. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up in that position. The way it's going to work with me, the difficulty to get to Man City players, I could well end up captaining Jamie Vardy against Fulham in game week 10, quite possibly. And it's going to be really difficult not to captain a City player against them in 11 or a Liverpool player against them in 12. So, yeah, target Fulham. That's what we should have called this podcast, mate.
Target Fulham.
Yeah. Although, worth saying, just to go back to them, obviously, briefly, that the new signing who come on from Lyon, Anderson, who we thought was going to be out till January, seems to have made a miraculous recovery and obviously played, and they kept a clean sheet.
Yep.
Whether that makes a difference, time will tell, but I still think they're there to be targeted, and West Brom just couldn't take advantage of them. What game are we meant to be talking about?
We're talking about Leeds.
Leicester.
Leicester.
Leicester. Yeah, not a disaster for Leeds. They weren't at their best, far from it. I thought some of the passing in the first half was sloppy. I mentioned last week about Leicester now staying with a back five for this fixture. I think you may get a lot of copycats of back fives against Leeds, because that, from what we've seen from Leicester Wolves, that looks like the best way to cope with the fact that they flood men forward so quickly. And it's interesting that Dean Smith spoke about it after they beat Villa, and Brendan Rodgers spoke about it last night as well. And it's the idea of making sure that a match against Leeds, what they're describing it at the moment, is not becoming a basketball match, basically. They both said it in very different words, but basically the same thing. Dean Smith described it as he didn't want to become a punch-up, basically, and Brendan Rodgers used the basketball analogy. And the idea being that the more spread and the bigger a football match becomes against Leeds, the more difficult it's going to be. I thought that in the first half, I thought Mendy played really well, and he did at Arsenal as well, and it's probably one that doesn't get a lot of credit. Him and Tielemans are becoming quite a good partnership. And I just felt at the start of the second half, when Leeds had a bit of domination, they started getting drawn to the ball when the defensive players had it, and I kept thinking, just sit in and protect the defence, and then, with Vardy, etc., you can take advantage on the counter. In an odd way, example of this is, Tottenham don't play Leeds for ages. I know they will batter us, but I know that we might beat them.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Complete.
And I think they'll have a few games like that. Palace, by the way, are probably not one who'll play a back five against them, so they could still well have some joy this week. But then, again, counter-attacking, Zaha, etc. There's quite a few people identified that this could be a good game for Jamie Vardy, and it very much proved that way.
Indeed it did.
Worth saying as well, he's now missed 2 penalties, in the sense that he's been taken off and Tielemans has scored 2 penalties. He could be on a far higher total at the moment, actually.
And he's missed the game as well.
Yes.
And
which
only came on as a sub in one game as well,
and
in which
he scored in that one.
Right, James, that's a good rundown of all the games. We've only got a few minutes left, so why don't you give everyone give a rundown of what we've got left coming this week for all the listeners, and I'm going to pick out 3 questions from Twitter that we're going to answer.
Okay, cool. So, Sky Podcast tomorrow, Thursday's clash.
Tune into that. It'll be a much more upbeat one.
Oh, yeah. We're not too bad at that game. Even Suj is getting all right.
Yeah.
Although Suj is going to tell everybody how at 11:30 on Sunday morning I helped make his transfers.
Yeah. Gave me a little bit of a strategy.
Was it helpful or not?
It was helpful until Danny Ings
got
his knee.
Injured, yeah. Thursday's clash of the correspondents, Aaron Lager, Bradley Parker, ahead of Leicester Wolves on Thursday. I'm going to do Ask James on Thursday night, basically straight after Tottenham playing Bulgaria on YouTube. The audio will go out first thing Friday. That's because my deadline stream will be at 3 o'clock on the Friday, because it's a 4 p.m. UK FPL deadline. Patreon pods this week. Obviously, have a catch up with yesterday's podcast. We felt it was an important one. We talked about mental health. We talked about how me and Suj are coping with the idea of lockdown, etc. It's just an open conversation. I hope many of you find it useful, and the message is very much, if you're feeling low about anything, do speak up. And my DMs are always open. Patreon, we did Q&A yesterday. We did Tottenham from earlier this morning. We've got a really interesting one on EFL fantasy tomorrow. Thursday, I've got a quiz. Friday is the differential show, game week 8 preview. That's our content.
Indeed.
And it's the start of the new month, so you usually do the Patreon.
It's a perfect perfect opportunity to jump on patreon.com/planetfpl, where we release a podcast every single day, as well as a Slack channel with loads of cool people to interact with every weekday. Yeah, indeed. And they do get a cheeky little extra, like you did the watch along on Saturday night.
I did a watch along Saturday
so
night. Yeah.
There's always fun and games to be had. Definitely worth your £3, £8, or £14 a month that you may want to join on. Head over, no obligation, but you may enjoy it. 3 questions, James, we have. The first one is for you. Well, it's for you. Yeah, it's for you. Esed says, what do you think of triple captain Kane versus West Brom?
Jesus. I think Gemma Baggies was recommending that as a possibility. Nah, not for me.
No?
Nah, if it can be used in a double one, there will definitely be that possibility.
Keep it up your sleeve
be
for
it
a little
18, 19, probably 26. There's going to be opportunities to triple captain. And genuinely speaking, as weak, and I do obviously think we'll go there and win at the weekend, Tottenham have shown nothing in the last 2 games, and if you include the Antwerp game, 3 games, to make you feel any confidence in using that chip right now. So no.
FPL Larson says, if Antonio is out, who is on penalties? So obviously if Noble's on the pitch, he's first choice for penalties anyway.
Yeah.
I would have then said if Yarmolenko is on the pitch, he would be the next choice.
Yep.
And if he's not on the pitch, then I'd say Aaron Cresswell is probably the one
I'd go
after
with that as well, yeah.
because he takes a lot of the corners, set pieces, free kicks. So, and if none of those are on the pitch, then basically you're fucked anyway. So I would have said it's probably in that
probably
order.
Bowen after.
I'd say Bowen.
Probably 4th.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd go with that, yeah.
And the last 2 questions are a little bit more fun, James.
Good.
From Man on FPL, the show. Go and check those guys out as well. If the only way you are allowed to attend the next North London derby,
I'll sell her.
was dressed as Gunnosaurus for the whole game.
Oh, fuck off.
Would you do it?
No, bollocks. I've learnt to live without now. Fuck that. Anyway, we all know Mesut Ozil's Gunnosaurus, so no thanks.
And for me, the best midnight snack, which isn't a takeaway, I've got that one as well. Cheese on toast, mate. Easiest thing to make. Cheese on toast. Doesn't take long. 2 slices grilled. The secret is to get the old oregano or mixed herbs out on the cheese. Adds it to another level. And if you're like me and you can handle a little bit of chili, whack on a little bit of Tabasco.
Oh, that's all I need.
And you're there. If not, Worcester sauce goes down well as well. Cheese on toast with a bit of herbs and Worcester sauce. Takes less than 5 minutes to make. Cheesy.
Midnight
satisfying.
Snack.
That's the one.
Do you know what I used to do years ago? This is going back to when I used to live with my mum and dad's. I used to get the old multi-packs of Walkers.
Okay.
And if like a 24-pack. So you'd get like salt and vinegar, cheese and onion, prawn cocktail, ready salted, beef and onion and chicken or something like that. So if there was like a WWE pay-per-view on and you didn't have to pay for it and it was on at like 1 o'clock in the morning, Sunday night, that'd come out. 1 of each. 6 bags of crisps at like 3 o'clock in the morning to help keep you awake. I can't remember last time I made something to eat at midnight, genuinely.
Yeah,
the only midnight food
I have my midnight snacks at about 10 p.m.
The midnight food I would know is a kebab on the way back from the pub, but that's non-existent now. So
no.
Yeah, I'd probably say beans on toast.
Nah, cheese on toast is the one. Cheese on toast.
I'm fucking lazy. I'm more likely to just have a ham sandwich or something.
Yeah.
I would have said. Or peanut butter on toast. That might be another one, maybe.
And on that bombshell.
So we've got all them questions and
we're sticking to it. But we've kept you entertained, we hope, for an hour and a half or so. So thank you so much for all of the interaction. Actually, to be honest with you, when I flicked through the questions, we have answered pretty much so many of them, talking about the likes of West Ham assets, Pereira, double Liverpool defence, etc., etc. We hope you enjoyed the show. Stay tuned wherever you are. Hit the subscribe button on iTunes and all the rest of that jazz. Most importantly, wash your hands, stay safe. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Cue music, please, man-child.
You forgot to tell them to be nice to each other.
Be nice to each other. They should fucking know that after yesterday. Be nice to each other. Speak up.
Ciao for now.
Cue music, man-child.